Hello, welcome back to Epoxy Resin Art Module 1 Video 1. So earlier I was explaining resin and hardener. So apart from the viscosity and the color of the levels, the most prominent difference wherever you go or wherever you want to buy resin and hardener is resin is always component A, while hardener is always component B. Resin is always component A, while hardener is always component B, or part A, part B. But you always see, apart from just the color of the levels, you will always see A and B. And with regard, depending on the combination, hardener is usually less than, or in rare cases equals to, the quantity of resin, depending on the combination, which we will explain in the course of the training. So I just wanted to bring this to our attention before we dive into learning the resin and art and dive deeply into the epoxy resin art. So preparation stage or preparatory stage. Once again, I would like to mention this in the beginning of this whole course. I know I mentioned it. If you are here for grammar or to check grammatical errors, or you are the cousin to Wale Soyinka or his niece or his nephew, well, this is a program to learn a skill, not to learn English language. If you want to learn English or you want to catch corrections, you can go for English language classes. Here we are teaching value and skills. The idea is to communicate value regardless of the grammar or the typographical error, in case if there is any or you come across any. So let's dive into the business of the day. Preparatory stage: personal safety and preparation of work area. Resin is a non-corrosive and user-friendly chemical, but regardless, you should comply with safety measures before you start. Wear your latex glove, like I explained earlier and showed you. Make sure you wear your latex glove. Wear your protective masks. Some people use clinical masks, but I don't usually advise it. There are protective masks you can have that is usually very more comfortable. Even though resin chemical as at present has no side effect whatsoever, but regardless, health conditions can arise at any point in life, so it's better you always adhere to the safety rules. And also your apron, make sure you put on your apron to protect your clothes from spoiling, right? And also coming to work area, you must make sure that you are doing everything with resin indoors. Every work you are doing with resin, it should be indoors in the sense it should be in an enclosed environment, like a room, a parlor, a kitchen, somewhere enclosed that there's a roof. Something cannot fall directly from the sky on your work, or at the moment where you are done with your work and you're waiting for it to cure. And then there should be window and doors, and they should have a protection or protective meshes. Maybe the window has burglary, maybe there are curtains, probably, right? For the door, maybe there's a net door or there's a curtain, something like that. So in case if it's how will I say, it's wind is blowing, in case the wind is blowing, dust will not come directly and get into your work, because once anything cures with your work, that's it forever, right? So it's best you look for an enclosure, and then you have your doors, your windows ready, but keep them open for close ventilation. Yeah, keep them open for close ventilation, but make sure make sure it's closed, or make sure it's somewhere in case if there's wind you can easily close it, right? And also it should be well ventilated. This is to avoid dust, harsh sun rays, or any other contaminant. Make sure the environment is not extremely cold or hot, right? It should be at room temperature. So once you have set up your space, that is, you have your working equipment ready depending on what you want to craft, next is jump on your project, right? So stage 1, resin measurements. The success of all your works in the world of resin crafts largely depend on the accurate measurement of epoxy chemical, that's your resin and hardener, that is your component A and component B. Epoxy resin chemicals are produced by different companies globally. There are companies that usually sell out mixtures. It depends on the combination of the chemicals they use in producing such products, right? So there are companies, on very rare cases, very rare cases, you see 1:1 of component A and B. It's usually, in fact, it's usually 1:2, and in extreme cases also on this other divide there is 1:3, right? But the most commonly available used combination in Nigeria and Africa at large, right, is 1:2. But notwithstanding, you can come across the 1:3 or 1:1 combination, right? For 1:1, what this means is you are mixing the same amount of resin and the same amount of hardener, right? For 1:2, it means you are mixing hardener with twice its equivalent of resin, right? For 1:3, you are mixing hardener with twice its equivalent of resin. Always make sure you check the manufacturer's description before you start or before starting. So let me describe this in layman language. For instance, you know those canned pig milk tin. We used to do moi before in those days. I don't know now, the mothers of now, or let me say the young girls that are marrying now rather, usually prefer using nylon, or is it leather, to do their moi. But before, our mothers used to do it inside tin, right? Or that Gino medium sized tin or can, you understand. After removing the tomato, after finishing with your pig milk, there's a way they used to open the top, and then you see it will be used for moi. Or sometimes if you go to shop recently, even now, you will see it using as measuring oil, measuring palm oil, measuring rice. When you say 1 cup, they usually give you that as cup, right? So I want to use that as example. If you have 1 cup and you fill it with hardener, and then you have 1 cup you fill it with resin, that is 1:1. You combine them together, you mix them for at least 3 to 5 minutes, right? 3 to 5 minutes. 1:1. If it's 2:1:2, that is 1 hardener, 2 resin. What you have to do is you fetch 1 cup of, right, 1 cup of hardener, 2 cups of resin, and you combine them together, right? You have a bigger, for instance, you have a bigger material, you just fetch 1 cup of hardener, 2 cups of resin, you combine, that's 1:2. And if it's 1:3, you fetch 1 cup of hardener and 3 cups of resin, and you combine. That is if you are using the volume measuring, not the weight. If you are using the weight measurement, then what you do is For instance, if your 1 represents say 1 kg, or let's say 100 100 milligram equals to 1 ratio. So that means if you use 100 milligram of hardener, you use 200 milligram of resin. If you use 100, that's for 1:2. For 1:1, you use 100 milligram of hardener, you use 1 milligram of resin, that's 1:1. For 1:2, you use 100 milligram of hardener, 100 milligram of 200 milligram of resin, that's 1:2. For 1:3, 100 milligram of hardener and 300 milligram of resin, that is 1:3, right? So any ratio you are measuring with, whatever ratio it is, if it's 1:1, 2:1, 1:2, 1:3, all you have to do is multiply that number of resin at all times. It always resin that is increasing, hardener remains constant, right? For 1:1, it means, so I'm very sure you've understood this explanation. So let's meet in module 1 video 2, where we'll be explaining stage 3.